Hi friends. So, January's over. I read 12 books this month. I don't know how that happened. Actually, I do know how that happened. I'm taking 6 literature classes this semester. That's how that happened. Let's just get right into it, So, the first book I read this month was Circe by Madeline Miller. 5 out of 5 stars. I put the review up on this channel back in the beginning of the month. This was my first read of the year, and I'm so glad because it set an excellent tone for the year. I'll link this video down below. If you want to hear me talk about Circe, that link will be in the description. Next, I read Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. 3 stars. Held my attention. Towards the end, got a little conservative propaganda-esque. I related to this a lot. In that, like, my hometown is literally 2 towns over from the town that he is, like, this book is, like, he lived in, because this is, like, a biographical book, basically, a memoir. I honestly don't think that the craft of the book was fantastic. I don't think that the book held my attention because it was a good book. I just think that I read it because, it's, like, literally my backyard. So I had to. I felt obligated. So, yeah. Next, I read Drawdown Saving the Planet. This is basically the most comprehensive plan ever put together on how to begin to reverse climate change. I don't think I'm going to give this a rating, mostly because it was kind of boring. I skipped around a bunch. It was very informative, but pretty dry, in my opinion. Fourth, I read Listening is an Act of Love by Dave Eze. I am in a comparative studies class this semester, and we opened the course by talking about the StoryCorps project, which is basically this project where these people drive around the country and they just listen to people's stories. It is so fascinating. They basically, like, they just pool relatives, and they're like a mother-daughter, a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law, like all sorts of combinations of people, neighbors, all sorts of things, and they tell stories of their lives that these people have never heard from each other before, and it is just so, in this time that we live in, sometimes we need to remember that we're all human, and this was a very good book for that, for me, so, recommend. I read Call Me By Your Name by Andre Ackerman. Yeah. Why did no one have me read this before? Okay, so I'm not sure if this is going to cause flack or anything, because I know that, and I thought that Call Me By Your Name, I literally thought was just gay Lolita, and of course I read Lolita, but I don't know. I think blinded by the internet hate. I didn't do my own research. That's my bad. I personally found this book to be beautiful. Just absolutely breathtaking. Just the writing of it is genuinely, like, oh God, it is so good. It really, like, if you've ever been in love before, then you should read it. I mean, the age gap isn't as bad as you think it is. He's like 17 and the other guy is like 24, 25, I think, 24, which obviously not great, but it's not as bad as I thought it was. I thought it was like a 16-year-old and a 35-year-old, which is why I avoided it for so long, but I honestly didn't even really read it for the plot. I read it for the prose, and if you've got an issue with the content, I recommend reading it for the prose alone. It is just that good. If you've ever loved someone, or if you've ever wanted to love someone, I recommend reading it. It really encapsulates, like, there's this feeling of being so in love with someone, you just want to, like, crawl inside of them and, like, curl up within them. And it is just so beautifully done. I can't recommend it highly enough. 5 stars. Next, I read Appalachian Elegy by Bell Hooks. As some of you remember from my New Year's resolutions video for my literary, like, goals, I wanted to get into Bell Hooks' work this year, and so I started off strong. This was a poetry collection which I thought it was going to be not a poetry collection, so I was pleasantly surprised because I've been getting into poetry recently. I found it funny that I read Hillbilly Elegy and Appalachian Elegy literally within like 2 weeks of each other. So I'm like, I'm riding that train to the end of the line. But I loved it. It was really beautiful poetry. The personification of the earth was excellent. Again, I'm in a climate change literature class, and I've been reading a lot about like I can never say this. I always sound like an imbecile when I say it in class. I've been reading a lot about the anthropomorphification. Yes, the anthropomorphication. Yes, of like Earth, and how we are compelled to understand the planet in terms of human in the human lexicon, because we're unable to understand anything else, and how that has to change because not everything is human, not everything should be, and in fact some things are far better. But anyways, that's a segue, but like I recommend Bell Hook's work. It's beautiful, and the poetry is excellent. It's so good. I reread Frankenstein by Mary Shelley for my sci-fi and fantasy class. Again, a 5 out of 5 star read for me. As you'll see later on in this video, actually, I'll just get to it now. After I read this, I then went on to read Mary's Monster, Love, Something or Another, and how like Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, which was this beautiful, beautiful book of it's like poetry. It's like it's biography poetry about Mary Shelley, her life, like her childhood, her life with like Percy Shelley, and in addition to those biographical poems, it is also beautiful, beautiful black and white realistic paintings within each page, and it is amazing. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is so good. And we already knew that I'm a big Mary Shelley fan. She's a romantic writer. Percy Shelley's a romantic poet, and we all know that I am a huge romanticist, so no one is surprised. But I just you learn things about her in the Mary's Monsters that I never knew. Also, I had the bombshell dropped on me by one of my friends that Mary Shelley was pregnant while she was writing this, which totally changes the way that I read it personally, because it makes it so much more a story of like tabula rasa, and this idea of like, if you create something, your obligation to it. So take that knowledge and run with it, and read Mary's Monster by Lita Judge, because it was amazing. Next, I read The Confessions of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Volume 1. So, this is also for my comparative studies class. As you can tell, I am doing some pretty heavy lit courses. It's kicking my butt. But, I'm learning, so it's fine. Anyways, Jean-Jacques Rousseau was very kinky, which I learned from reading his Confessions. I've told this story to literally like 15 people just because I was fascinated by it when I found out about it. So basically, when he was born, his mother died. So then he's raised by his father. When he's 6 or 7 years old, his father reads him as a bedtime story the mother's whole erotic novel collection. So already he's sexually way before where he should be. So then he's 8 or 9. He goes to school, and he has this teacher named Madame Lebercier. And Madame Lebercier, he's Rousseau's naughty. We knew this. So she spanks him, and getting on her lap to be spanked is the first time he's felt close to someone like that, like to a woman. And so he now likes spanking, and he's super into spanking, and he talks about how this detestable affinity followed me into my marriageable age, and how this depravity nearly drove me to madness. Again, an Enlightenment thinker, so we knew he'd be woke, but I didn't know how woke. Honestly, an interesting read. I don't know if I recommend reading all of it, but at least that section is fascinating. Next, I read Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. This was incredible. This just was Jacobs, her writing is amazing. It is just so visceral, and you physically feel the things that she's describing. She paints a picture that like grosses you out but also makes you want to like keep reading. I highly recommend it. Honestly, it's not that long. Just like pick it up and you can have it done in an afternoon. It is some of the best writing that I've read pretty much ever, actually. Yeah, you know, it's a true story. It's crazy. It's crazy. And it's really well written, so I recommend it. Next, I read Bunny by Mona Awad. This, I had such high expectations. Y'all know that I was in my, like, academic, like, dark academic phase in the beginning of last year, and I was, like, doing Libby orders, like, left and right, putting in holds all over the place. So this finally came through, and I was like, oh, I guess I'll read this. So, read the first, probably third, and it's just trucking along as a normal dark academic novel does. And then it gets like to the third mark, and then it starts to like decline a little bit and get a little weirder. And I'm like, okay, interesting, I'll vibe with you for a minute. I keep vibing. I vibed for another third, and then the last third is like a fever dream. It is legitimately so crazy. I can't tell what's going on. I can't tell what's real, what's not. I can't tell what the plot was meant to be. I am just completely lost. Like, I can't tell what character's which anymore. Just like, I don't recommend this book. I'll give it a 2 stars. I finished it because I made it to 75%, and then at that point I was just reading as fast as I could because I was like, what the hell? Are they gonna like explain this at the end? I was so sure that we were gonna get to the end of the book and they were gonna explain what was going on, and they never did. The book just ended, and I was like, you know what, whatever. I don't recommend it. Don't read it. Last, this one was a ride. This encapsulates where I'm at in my semester already. It's week 5 now, and this is already where I'm at. So, it's currently Friday night. Yes, this is what I do on a Friday night. 2 nights ago, Wednesday night, I realized that I meant over the autobiography of Ben Franklin for not only for my comparative studies class, because we're like reading autobiographies right now, but also for my colonial literature class. So, realized that a little too late. I'm trying to read it, and it is literally like swimming through gravy. Like, not just gravy that's been sitting for too long. It is just a brick wall that I'm trying to get through. And eventually I'm like, I fall asleep twice, and I can't do this. And I go on YouTube, I find an audiobook, and I listened to a 6-hour audiobook in one night. In one night! Just... And it wasn't actually the full 6 hours because I sped that shit up. But Ben Franklin makes me want to be more disciplined, but also I never want to hear anything about him ever again. That was my 12 books. That's where I'm at emotionally right now too. Oh my gosh, Sophia and I went to go see The Office, the musical parody, in the beginning of this month, midpoint of this month. I honestly don't know anymore. And we had such a good time. It was so good. I highly recommend it. If you, like, look it up online, see it. Like, get a little glimpse. It was real good. And it was good to see Sophia again. I love Sophia. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. This video is unduly long, but my reading content for this month was unduly long, so I think it's warranted. I hope you guys are all having a really good 2020 so far. That's weird. Coronavirus is happening. We've got the impeachment trials probably going to end without anything important happening. Oh yeah, Britain left the EU today, so that sucks. Sorry for you guys. I really apologize. That must suck. Yeah, the world is in shambles, and we are just trucking along. I love all of you so much. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!